Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Real Chums. I'm your host, Marcel, and with me is my co-host, Danny.
In this week's episode, we'll be diving into the spectacular world of Avatar, as well as sharing some quick news in the movie and TV space.
First of all, quick shout out to everyone that's listened to episode 1.
All nine of you.
All 9 of you.
You guys are our heroes. We won't forget you.
We won't, yeah. Not that we're tracking your information or anything like that. We don't know who you are, but thank you.
Facts. We don't
know you.
But if you did listen, shoot me a text message.
But yeah, keep sharing, keep liking, keep letting your friends know, your wife's husband, whoever. And yeah, just spread the word. We really appreciate it and love the feedback we've gotten so far.
If you have a movie you would love for us to share, or if you have a favorite scene you want us to discuss, please send us a message on Anchor FM, and we will listen to them and then try to incorporate into the show at some point.
Yeah. And again, we're on Twitter. Use the hashtag #RealChums. Real with 2 E's. Gotta make sure people know that.
I know.
But yeah. Danny, I wanted to ask you, what are you watching like lately? Like any good recommendations? Anything good?
Oh, okay.
TV wise or movies.
I've been really enjoying Latin shows.
Okay.
I feel like they are really the filmmakers and the storytellers in that Latin space, in that like I mean, there's a lot of even like, Korean dramas and stuff like that, but Belascoran is a Netflix show. Okay. It's about a guy who he is in Mexico, but his dad's Irish.
Huh.
And came to Mexico. Anyways, it's a like noir detective show, and it's super enjoyable. I really am digging it. It's kind of, like I said, it's like 70s time frame, I think is what it was. But that was good. There's also another one on Amazon, but it's about a female private affair. And it's got, what's his name? You know who this is.
Yeah, the French guy.
Yeah. Oh, he's French.
He's French, yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyways, his Spanish is pretty good.
Oh, he speaks Spanish in it?
He speaks Spanish.
I had no idea.
Yes,
oh, wow.
Yeah. That's what made me think. I was like, is he Spanish? I'm like, I don't think he was. I thought he was like something else, but I was like convinced. I didn't check it.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two shows are some shows that I've been watching on the weekends. On the weekdays, I'm just rewatching a couple of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're sleeping on some of those like Latin, like even if you don't do like if you can want to learn Spanish, it's a great way because like they're speaking proper Spanish, like Castellano, whatever you want to call it. But anyways, so that's what I'm. What about you?
Cool. See, I'm in the same way where like during the weekdays I'm rewatching. I mean, in our home, you'll always have The Office playing in the background or Parks and Rec. But I've been watching, obviously, Star Wars: The Bad Batch.
Dude, I haven't finished that.
Wednesday, so maybe we'll do like an episode on that. So that's been fun. I feel like the first three episodes were really good, really good. And right now it's just kind of like, all right, let's get into it, keep going. But so that's been good. Other than that, I finally caught up with Abbott Elementary.
That's phenomenal.
Dude, I love Abbott Elementary. It is so good.
They did a phenomenal job. I think that they found a good. I mean, because like you have The Office, you named two, right? Parks and Rec and The Office, and so I think that I think they nailed what it kind of like, that feeling of the gung ho teacher, and like just the seasoned veteran, and like the person who just, they care, but they also don't care. Like the whole series. I mean, it's no surprise to me that they won. The writer, the main actress is also the showrunner.
Showrunner, yeah, and one other. Right.
They won. I don't remember what they won. They won something.
They won several stuff.
Yeah.
During the Emmys, but yeah, no, it's a great show. Like it's funny. I think it's the first, like season 1 was the first series where I rewatched season 1 at least 5 times before season 2 coming out. Like I really enjoyed it. It was really good. So I've been watching that, and that's such a fun show.
Do you like the mock or the? I mean, obviously you like the mockumentaries, but like, are you more comedy when it comes to shows?
When it comes to shows, that's the thing. I like comedy, yes, but like I think Abbott Elementary is probably the only thing that I'm watching like currently, like live right now. But yeah, it's great. I love the mockumentary style of comedies. It's fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think I didn't. You know, I think I don't know. Office didn't start it, but I think they really helped that genre.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to practice television, or like if you're gonna get into filmmaking or try to do stories, if you doing like a small mockumentary, not a whole show, but like a scenario, I think it's a great way to incorporate. And I think that's what vlogging to some degree, like you can really
Yeah.
create that style. And like if you want to do something scripted, I think that could be a place that people could start.
Yeah.
Anyways, I did want to make a quick update. I think in the last episode, I did say that I wasn't sure. I didn't think that Amazon was going to renew the terminal list. I was wrong, which is totally okay because it is a great show. But not only did they renew for a second season, but they have a prequel with Ben Edwards, who is one of the other characters.
Oh, okay.
So they'll have two shows in that universe.
Oh.
The other thing, this was the other, I was like, there was one other thing from Amazon. Amazon did report that they're like, we talked about this in the last episode, but they're like, they're doubling down on original content. Like they spent, I'll have to find the article, but it was like, I think a couple $1 billion on original programming.
Wow.
I mean, so I think we'll see a lot more stuff.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. All right, talk to me about selling out comics.
Okay, let's talk into the news. So last week we talked about like the DCU, the Chapter 1 slate, James Gunn announcing all of that. But then what was really unique was that James Gunn said these are the runs that are influencing this Chapter 1, right? We're not doing an adaptation of the on screen. It's just like the feeling of it and certain elements. We're gonna incorporate that into the stories.
The inspiration.
Yeah. And so then he listed the books, and then turns out like everywhere on Amazon, local comic book shops, everyone's run out of all of these comic books, which is great. And even like, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, he tweeted out that he met with Jim Lee, obviously head of publishing, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna publish more. Like we're stay tuned. We're getting more produced and printed and shipped out. So that's great. I bring that up because there is a nasty, like, dirty history between publishers and comic book artists and writers where they get hired, they write for DC, Marvel, they get paid, and then 20, 30 years down the road, they make a movie and they don't get credited for that character. And there's no payment to that writer and creator, right? Because the idea is, we paid you, and whatever you print or whatever you write or create
is
now owned by us, Marvel or DC or whoever. Right. And then that's when you had a lot of comic book writers then branch out and create Image Comics and a bunch of their own publishing companies. But I thought it was such a smart move from James Gunn to like say, hey, here's the writer, the story run that's influencing us, and give credit to them. Because I guess moral of the story is go out, support comic books, support writers, buy from them, just because these people go years without being like credited.
No, I mean, 100%. I think the thing is like, if you are someone who says you love Marvel, but you've only watched these movies, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like, because like it is the material that they're adapting for the film, because it's not the same now, especially with Marvel. Like they're taking inspirations from different things, but they have to put it in a cinematic universe and what they've started to build. Whereas the comic books, they're comic books. It's just like a book, from like my personal opinion, like Harry Potter, the movies based off the books, is very different from Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah,
and it's because it was the mediums where they were first originally created for. And so, take some time. Like even you can go to your libraries, and if you don't want to purchase anything, go to your library. They always have some sort of collection to get started with. And it's a great way for like young readers. Like for them, because like there's not a lot of words. Obviously, there's more mature content in some of them, so you have to be selective.
Be selective.
But it's a great opportunity, and it's a great way to support getting even better material.
Yeah, and I think bringing awareness to this, because there's a great article. We'll add it to the show notes. But a couple of years ago, the writer of the guy who co-created Wolverine, okay, in the 80s,
yeah,
he also created the character of Lucius Fox. Okay.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
But get this, DC is supposedly better than Marvel at compensating writers and creators for their stuff. But he went on record and he said, I've made the Christopher Nolan movies where Lucius Fox was in,
big character,
right? I made more money off of those than in the 9 movies that have had Wolverine in. The main character of the X-Men movies, Wolverine, the guy has made no money from those. And yet he made some money from Lucius Fox, a side character in 3 movies.
Right.
And so like, it's just go out, support comic book writers.
And I mean, I think this is like just the struggle between artists and like distributors.
Yeah.
Like distributors want to make the most money they possibly can. But the people who are like creating sometimes get shafted.
Yeah.
Right. You look at musicians or, whatever you are. So hopefully things will change. It's little by little, right? That's all that's all we have for.
Yeah. The other news I wanted to bring up was the fact that Black Panther, announced by Disney, Black Panther Wakanda Forever has become the most watched Marvel film premiere on Disney Plus. So the most watched Marvel film
in the first 5 days.
Yeah.
On the platform.
That's huge.
That is huge. I was trying to see if we could get. No, I mean, did you watch it in theaters?
I watched it. Yeah, I watched it in theaters.
Okay, you're quick. Yay or nay? We'll do another review. We'll do another episode on this, but
yay with some nays.
Okay, that's fair.
No, I find it's a great movie. I loved it. It was a bit way too long for me.
It was a little bit, yeah.
It was a little bit long, and it's also like it's not a movie that I'm rushing to go see it again just because of like the subject matter. Like the movie's about grief and loss and pain, and like when it came out on Disney Plus last week, I was like, yeah, I will get around to it. I'm not ready to like sit down for 3 hours and revisit these emotions again.
Yeah. I heard it's a Black Panther movie, but not a Black Panther movie.
You haven't seen it yet?
No, I've seen it.
Oh, okay. All right.
But it's like some people are maybe like, it's not quite a Black Panther 2, even though it's like the second one, right?
Yeah.
But I thought it was enjoyable. But I also agree it was hefty, especially if you're someone who's lost.
If you've lost someone recently, like
it connects.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So this is a huge one. We wanted to touch probably on this is the Netflix cracking down on password sharing. Now we knew this was coming. If you didn't, you were living under a rock. I'm sorry. Like it's like for I think past like 7 years, 5 years probably.
Yeah.
It's been like, oh, it's gonna come. Now it's like it's official. I think.
Starting in March, I think.
In March, correct.
What's interesting was Netflix. It's kind of a hot mess over there. They put it on their website that this, like in their Q&A section of their website,
right? And
then like 2 days later, they take it down.
Yep.
And they come out and say, "Oh, that was a mistake. We weren't supposed to put that on the website."
Correct.
That
important term.
That's only impacting the Latin American regions.
Yeah.
And then a few days later, they're like, but it is going to come. Like, be aware it's happening in March. So it's a little bit of a hot mess in their communications there. But I think this is I don't know.
Well, I mean, like we have to take into account. Okay. At one point, Netflix said sharing your password is love. But that was also when they were trying to, grow,
sure,
and get more users and whatnot. So you have that aspect, right? There's the fact that like at the time when some of that stuff, it was like they were trying to compete with standard television. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're now at this point where we literally everyone and their dog has a streaming platform.
Yeah,
which is fine. And we knew that it was at some point, especially when Disney announced Disney Plus. Mm-hmm. Knew that was going to be a big shakeup because once Disney Plus was announced, in my opinion, that was the like kingpin that signaled to everybody that this was going to be a battle.
Yeah.
Right? Because literally Disney would probably supplied most of the content for like kids shows slash, whatever, some of these other things. Now I think that Netflix may have had some, they warned, so they started investing heavily in some of this, their animation department, which they then got rid of. It's tragic.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's not as terrible as like it was some people were suggesting. I mean, they are gonna create an ad for like similar to other options where there's gonna be an ad, like a cheaper version with ads, which will help with the revenue. I believe we still don't know when that's gonna be released.
Yeah. Yeah, they haven't said that. I think it's a little bit tricky because like the concept of what they're saying is that your devices need to be
innocent, whatever your payment location is.
Yeah, your primary location, it needs to be in that Wi-Fi, and it needs to connect at least like once every 30-ish days.
Yeah, once a month.
Once a month. Okay. If not, if you're going on vacation, okay, and you want to watch Netflix, you have to submit a request to get a code.
Yep.
You get that code, and then you put it in there in your account, and then you can watch things for 7 days. I think you're creating such a messy like user experience.
I know.
I think this is only going to increase like piracy.
Yo.
Like I don't think Netflix has thought this through. Like this is going to increase piracy. I'm not condoning it.
Let the record show.
But
we here at Real Chums do not condone piracy.
Yeah, but I do think like
it's going to happen.
I think people are just going to be like, forget this.
And
also going back to that point, right? 3-4 years ago, they raised prices with the intent that people are sharing accounts, so we're just raising it $4 or $5.
Right.
Are they going to drop then prices? They are not.
No, they're not going to do that.
So right. I just think it.
I thought they were going to toy with the idea that you could, so there's another article, and I think Hank Green shared a TikTok where someone stitched that said like there's a person in France that is using got my password login or something.
Okay.
Like they got the black market, purchased whatever they want to do, and is logged in, but it's just like created their own account and just are watching their own thing, right? Hank Green or John Green, one of the Green brothers, I think it was John, the author, right?
Uh-huh.
So he goes and he shares that he's got some person from some country that has his own, that got his password, and he's been like on his account for like 3 years, and he like, everyone's like, sometimes I go in there just see what he's watching, just check it out, right? And but I think that there are a lot of people that are surprised, like, you left it with a girlfriend or whatever, and I think that this could help purge on Netflix end, like help make a purge to help, and honestly for like your own account to like, not have it be accessed by people you forgot that you gave it to. But it does make it very complicated. And now I think like if they can crack the code to making it beneficial, not only to them, right, but also to like their users, because like you said, the experience is not pretty. And if they can make it at least, I don't know, okay, then they could probably increase some additional revenue and keep it, like marginally okay, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's gonna be a weird shakeup over the next little bit.
It is.
Yeah. So good luck.
Good luck.
Sorry, Mom. I'm probably gonna have to buy you your own Netflix.
Gosh, I share with like 3 people, 4 people.
No. Yeah.
Oh well.
Oh, it was coming. Another final update for news is I wanted to share that Corridor Digital, which is a YouTube studio that does like VFX and stuff. One of their crew members is trying to make their own like Halo series that's based off of the ODST people. I don't know if so the ODST are like the ground troops, and not that the Halo show, it was okay if you're like just taking it as a they did really well with like incorporating like what Halo looked like, and I think they did a good job with that and some of that. But when it came to like what a Halo story could be, I think they were focusing too much on like the spectacularism of the Spartans, and that's not what they're like little whisperings. I feel like that's what So, and there's been other things out there, and so they created a little trailer to see if they can get it inspired, and they can rally up some people to communicate or like check it out. I'd highly recommend if you're a Halo fan, grew up in the era, check this trailer out because it's, or even this videos, their breakdown of it, because they used like actual in-game modelings and and it's pretty sweet. So definitely check it out if you're a Halo nerd. And I just want to throw that in the last little tidbit of the news portion.
Perfect. Well, let's jump kind of into the bulk of why we're meeting. Let's talk Avatar: Way of Water.
Pandora. We're not in Kansas anymore.
Just to preface this conversation, so the movie supposedly had a budget of $300 million.
Yeah, but they needed $2 billion in movie sales to even like see if it was going to be viable to do or to finish out the other
four.
Well,
3.
Okay, I don't. That's not unclear.
No, because they did film 2 and 3 back to back.
Correct, but I don't know. I don't know if the $2 billion was to make the 4th and 5th one, or if it was just to see if the 3rd one was going to be greenlit, like to be finalized. I think we'll have to. That's some. I don't know, but $2 billion.
But right now it's sitting at 2.
Yeah.
2, I think we're the last.
No, I think probably
2.4. I think. Actually.
I think so.
Yeah, 2.4 billion. So,
which I think this is where I think this is why it. I mean, not only because like Avatar is, I think, a very influential. These movies they may not be talked about, and that's kind of where I'm confused.
Yeah.
Vox has a great article called "Why is Avatar 2 making $2 billion and no one talking about it?" And so I think I want to talk. Let's talk our thoughts about that aspect of like what's happening here.
Yeah, no, that's it's true. I feel like I hear more people talking about other movies that came out during the last year when they had come out more.
Puss in Boots.
Puss in Boots. A lot of people are talking about Puss in Boots. Yeah, that is true. But before we jump into Avatar: Way of Water, I kind of want to ask you the question: what was, just so that we can kind of have a quick foundation, what was your experience with the first Avatar?
Okay.
Not necessarily a review, and if
no,
but what was your experience with it?
It's a good question. I was late to the party on watching it, so I didn't watch it opening weekend, and I was a pretty avid opening weekender for some big movies. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it was, and I think part of it is like there was a little bit too much hype because sometimes I want to check myself. I'm like, am I joining the hype train, or am I just what's going on here? So, but I remember watching it. I remember being, amazed. I remember thinking that this is a pretty amazing, world, what they did with it. But I didn't love it. It wasn't my favorite.
Yeah.
That being said, I think it's seasoned. It's kind of marinated with me, and I've watched it several times since, especially over the past, I don't know, probably 3 years. And every single time I watch it, I enjoy it more and more.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's kind of my experience.
I like that. I'm kind of in the same boat. I didn't watch it right at the beginning. I was actually in a 2-year mission for my church when it came out.
Oh, you were on your mission?
Yeah, I was.
When it came out?
Yeah.
It makes me realize that I don't know how old you are. I'm realizing that you're probably older than me. Try to guess our ages down in the comments below, or if you message us on Anchor.
Prize for whoever gets it right. We'll see.
Special end credits.
So during that 2 years, you're just focused on service and missionary, and so I watched it in March when I came home.
So it had already.
I think it came out in did it come out also in December, November?
I think so.
Yeah, and so I didn't watch it until late March, and at that point the only theater that was playing it locally was what we used to have, what was called a dollar theater, and so I watched it in there 3D, and I remember being okay, I had heard hype about it, and people were like, oh, this is it's so cool, the world, the colors, it's all 3D, and I remember someone even saying like everything's motion capture, and it was oh, okay, interesting. And when I watched it, I was like, yeah, this is cool. I like it. I'm not a big 3D fan.
Me neither.
But this is really cool. I like it. I see the arguments people have on the story. that it's just a ripoff of Pocahontas. I think there's more to it than just the ripoff of Pocahontas. But I was like, yeah, this is good. The same thing, I think over the years, I've watched it maybe in the last 13 years, I've watched it maybe 5 times. And it's like, yeah, as a technical achievement, it's incredible. The CGI still holds very well. The story, I don't like Jake Sully in the first movie. And I have some thoughts on the sequel, but I had issues with Jake Sully as a character. I still think Neytiri is a phenomenal character.
I think who's that?
Zoe Saldana.
She's amazing. She's a phenomenal actress.
Yeah. It was incredible, but I've enjoyed it more now that it's kind of like seasoned, like you said, and yeah, I've liked it. So I think going into the sequel, I didn't watch any trailers. I chose not to watch any trailers. I muted
impressive
Avatar on Twitter so that I wouldn't get bombarded by it.
Impressive.
And I just went like cold turkey into it.
Okay, let me ask this question. Did you watch it in 3D high frame rate?
I watched it in 3D. I think it was high frame rate.
So did you go to the Megaplex over here?
No, I went to Cinemark. I don't think it was, because there were some times where I was like, ooh, I don't like that scene.
I watched it twice.
Okay.
Right. And the first time I watched it in IMAX 3D high frame rate.
Okay.
The second one, we watched it in IMAX 3D because it was either IMAX 3D or 3D with high frame rate.
Yep.
And I was like, well, they shot it in IMAX, we should watch it in that way. I made a mistake. I'm going to tell you right now, if you can still watch it and you haven't watched it yet, go watch it in high frame rate, because on a technical level, they added, so it's not like in other movies where they have like it's like 24 and 48. It's like portions of it is going to be in 48, and then like the actual action is in 24. So like there's just like this, I don't know how they're doing that setup, because like my filmmaking, I'm like, usually I can kind of like understand like this is how they're doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're doing that, because like normally you can only choose your frame rate when you're creating a video. So I'm going to edit in 24, so that way your 60 frame per second could be slowed down about half or whatever. So, but it felt like watching it for the second time with not high frame rate. I could definitely feel the lack of it when it came to especially with 3D.
Yeah.
And I do think that you do need to watch it in 3D, and because you do get the extra immersiveness,
sure,
which is what is needed for this kind of film.
Yeah.
Anyways, so.
Yeah, and I think there were times in this movie where I was like, that doesn't look good. I'm like, is that just the 3D or is that the frame rate? Like, there were times, it only happened like 3-4 times where I called it out. I was like, ooh, that doesn't look good.
I want to say it's probably the frame rate.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
But it's it's hard. I don't know. I just know that like when I watched it the first time, I was mesmerized.
Yeah.
100%. I was like, and I guess we could talk about.
Let's talk about it. Spoilers or no spoilers first, then spoilers.
I think we can. Let's do no. We'll cover some of like the overarch stuff, and then we'll go into some of the.
Okay, and we'll put it like a timestamp. That way you
can
skip ahead or whatever. Okay, I loved it. It was great.
Yeah,
I liked it so much more than the first one.
Why? Why was it free? Because I think I agree. I agree. I think that I enjoyed. Maybe it's because like I said, it's seasoned. For Avatar 1 kind of like marinated with me, and like I kind of coming into this one, I just appreciated it a little bit more. I appreciate, like, for whatever reason, I connected with James Cameron's vision of what he was trying to do with not only storytelling, but with like technology in filmmaking, like that whole aspect, like just it fully resonated. Maybe I'm more mature as like a filmmaker or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, a couple of reasons. So I really, well, the plot is
basic.
I mean, basic, simple. It's simple, right? Like it's been at least a decade, 13, 14 years since the Sky People left. They're back. And they're back with a vengeance, I guess. And what's his face? The Sully clan family needs to now escape, and that's it. Like it's a revenge story.
Yeah, it's a revenge story, and I think
and so I think the plot is very simple. I do feel though that this had this movie come out like 2-3 years after the first one, how everyone kept pressuring James to like just push out a
Yep.
sequel, or it would have been a disservice.
Yes.
I think because the characters have grown and matured. I'm in a different place where I was 13 years ago. Now I have kids, right?
Yes.
And this movie is very much about family.
Yep.
And what a parent will do to like protect your kids. Not that someone who doesn't have kids can't relate, but
No.
like I'm in a different place. The characters are in a different place in their life, and it really just hit with me. I think it would have been a disservice to have this movie come out, 3 years after, or even during like the whole Star Wars era where we were just getting tons of Star Wars stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. And I do want to do like a huge shout out to like the writers. The first one was just James Cameron. He wrote that screenplay.
Yep.
That was his. This time around, and I've got their names. It was Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver. If you don't know who they are, they're a married couple, and they are famous for writing the recent Planet of the Apes movies,
Phenomenal.
which are great movies.
Yeah, they are.
About like family, about a society,
Yep.
and also they did a great job with bringing emotion out of a CGI ape,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they have translated that to this movie.
You're 100% correct. The first time I watched it, I was impressed and whatever, but I did feel like that was really basic. And I think that's really the root cause of why people aren't talking about it. Is because like it feels like to some degree, some people think it might be too basic. But I think what it does is that when you end up watching it multiple times, each time is like a layer to connect with a different character or a different moment. Because the thing is that throughout this movie, every challenge seems the same. People might say, why is the kid always getting in trouble again? But the core values are like Sully stick together.
Yeah,
And if you do that, if someone makes a mistake, you're going to try to help them out. And that might mean you get into a sticky situation.
yeah,
Right. And so, but those little conflicts kind of like they're small things that end up, in some way are bigger, cause bigger conflicts, consequences, or small situations. Right. And I think that it is really, I mean, having those two writers on board makes, especially with their background, with what they were doing with the Planet of Apes, which is similar kind of like tensions, right? With different clans and whatever. Provides for this movie something that can really grow with people.
yeah.
And I think you said it great that like it would have done a disservice. And I think they would have. I mean, I think if they came out shortly after, people would have been like, man, that wasn't as enjoyable.
Yeah.
And I think because, it's like, well, it's basically the same movie or whatever. But, and you can't say that, because it is a whole time span. I mean, you and I are different. We are the same people, but totally different.
Yeah.
Compared to, when this movie first came out, And so for me, I think really what, the other aspect that I thought was really impactful for this film was the performances of these characters. And I think for me, Patrick Tomaso, if you don't know him, he's a great YouTuber. He's got a breakdown shortly after he watched it. And it's about the scene where, I guess we won't go there, but he talks about like the fact CGI and realism, right? But I think for me is what I found really impactful for this film is that like James focused strictly on the performance of the actors. And it wasn't about like because normally when you make a film, you've got, you have set designers, you have costume people, and you're trying to do all these things. You're trying to put them into a world, and they didn't have any of that. Literally, all they did was they tried to, this is where you're at. You kind of, you've seen, whatever it is, but we need you to perform and we need you to deliver. And so it's not so much about like being like trying to like place them there. These actors, and even whatever you say might from each of the characters, I think they're phenomenal because they could imagine themselves in these situations. And I think you see that in what they've delivered in their facial expressions throughout the entire film, right? When people feel pain, they end up feeling pain. When they feel anger, you feel their anger.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is what made me just realize that sometimes it's not about like, because I mean like they had the acting, and if but the fact that it's like not really them, right? It's like these CGI characters. I think is what makes you, or at least for me, made me realize how much of an effort and like strength these actors are, what they're doing, and what James Cameron is like pulling from them, right? Because they're doing everything else after the fact, which is, just technically amazing, but also just like emphasizes what he prioritizes.
Yeah, and I think and then you layer on top of that like the incredible effects, right? The motion cap suits and those performances, like you feel it.
Yeah.
But it starts, like you said, with the raw performance of the actor.
Yeah.
Right. And for them to be able to show that and emote that, and then you have great work from Weta to then take those motion cap images and then create the VFX and the Navi and the characters and all that. So it was good. I enjoyed it. I think I remember. Go ahead.
My question to you: how do you feel about the future of Avatar compared to after Avatar 1?
So I'm excited, like, and I'm excited for the future. I'm hoping, and this was like when James Cameron announced like 4 years ago that this one was going to be like with a water village and whatnot. I remember thinking, I hope the first one was a human in Navi learning, how to be a Navi, whatever. I hope this one is in like a forest Navi learning how to be a water Navi, and that's what it was, right? Like we revisited similar story beats. I'm just hoping that the next ones aren't like, now that we've conquered forest and water, now we're going to like the lava Navi who live near a lava. Like I hope we don't like let's move on. Like I it's cool seeing a character out of water and like figuring out how to manage
Character in water,
in this case in water.
pun intended.
Pun intended. But yeah, I think that's the only thing that I'm just like, James Cameron is really good at ripping off himself.
Ooh.
Like,
yeah.
And like there were times in this movie I was like, oh, that's got like awesome like Aliens 2 feeling, right? Incorporating kids into the movie and like having like in Aliens 2, she becoming more of like a mother figure.
Right.
And so like I saw that. And then like in the action sequence, like you saw great ripping himself off from Titanic and from Terminator. And so like he's great at ripping himself off. I just don't want him to like continue to do that for the next Avatar.
Yeah. I'm not too worried about it. I feel like what these two films were for us to feel connected as much as he's connected to the characters in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
And my feeling is that these were just setups for us to have buy-in into Pandora, and that the next 3 films will have some of the characters, but will have bigger impact of like interactions and a little less focusing on like these journeys, and more of like what they're trying to do collectively to help improve or like challenge the sky people or whatever.
I hope so, because
me too.
I think you could even say like James is like creating his own version of like Blue Planet. Did you ever see Blue Planet? Like that documentary of like planet Earth?
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
I feel like he's doing that, but with Pandora. Like it looks great. It's amazing.
I mean, yeah.
And there's but I feel like my one like dislike for this movie was I felt like we could have like edited out and like cut a lot of like that middle act of like, here we're in the water and we're gonna talk about like, not that it was boring. No. I just feel like this could have been condensed a little bit more, and we could have kept the story kind of hitting and going a little bit faster. And I just don't want to revisit that again. I get it. Pandora's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
Or even like the fact that he's trying to make a statement for like our planet or whatever.
Our planet, whatever it is. Yeah, right. But like I'm ready for like are we going to go back and talk about like colonialism? Like that was like a big aspect of the first movie, right? This one you can argue it's more about, I don't know, capitalism and the impacts, right? But like where are we going with this story? But I'm excited for it.
Yeah. speaking of like, I guess big undertones. I mean, obviously you have the Earth and trying to like protect the Earth, and then you have like colonialism. I actually felt like this was more of a story of immigration
Okay.
and like why people immigrate.
Yeah.
Immigrate, right?
Okay.
There's maybe you don't have anything left for you at some place, and you need to start a new beginning. I mean, Sky people. Then you have like Jake, and they feel threatened. They're not safe. They want to go to a new location.
They become refugees
They,
themselves.
they become refugees. I don't know. I just felt like that was like a big thing that I felt like watching the second time I like connected with in that aspect. So, anyways, it's fun, those aspects. All right, let's talk
Spoilers.
about let's get into like the actual like film. Let's talk about some of our favorite scenes. Let's talk about what you feel. What was it like? Let's start with like what didn't you like? And let's start with the characters, because I think this is something that can be jarring, particularly because it's basically the entire first cast for the the majority of the entire of the first cast to some degree. We got Sigourney Weaver back as her own daughter, mysteriously born. We don't know what's going to happen, what's happening there. We have
Quaritch.
yeah, who comes back as Navi. I appreciated that, honestly, because I think he's an interesting character. It's but it's weird because like it's been so many years, so like normally you see new people minus the main characters or whatever.
Yeah.
And to some degree, but we have to take like sometimes we get caught up in those, because I didn't love it that when I first realized that like Sigourney Weaver was gonna be back. Not that I don't love Sigourney Weaver, but
Right.
You're like, oh man. But there's something to be said about these seasoned actors. And I think that's kind of where I also struggle with Jake Sully to some degree, because I think to some of them, like, I mean, I don't know what other movies the actor Jake Sully has been in.
He's kind of had not a struggling career, but
maybe he's Jake Sully.
Yeah. He wasn't he in he was in that horrible Terminator movie, wasn't he? Or am I thinking of the wrong person?
No, he was in Terminator Salvation.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's in Clash of the Titans. Not amazing, but like whatever. And so, anyways, but I think like they filmed these relatively quickly after the first one came out. So I think they've had the footage and they've had these performances and these whatever for quite a long time. At least from some of the info. I don't know. I haven't done the full deep dive, but with that aspect, and so like, to some degree, I think like it's kind of quirky, but it's totally, it's. I think there's something to be said about adding these characters back, especially with the world that Pandora is, and we have to take into account that like this is not like a regular. No, it's not our world.
Yeah.
Or it is our world, but like very far in advance, and there's other technologies, right? And so, I don't know. I think that when I first watched it, I was a little bummed. I was like, not sure if I love it. Watching it the second time, I think, I think maybe some choices can be made different, but I'm not mad anymore. Like I think it's totally. I think if you watched them back to back, you would totally be okay with it. With it.
I think for me, what I didn't like, and I'm maybe torn between this, like Quaritch was a great villain, the first one. James Cameron is really good at like stereotyping like Marines, right? Like he does it really well in Alien.
Yes.
And so anyways, like he was just like such a stereotype of a Marine. But when he came back, I was like, oh, interesting. Like, so this is we're going down this route. Okay. And then it was like the way they explained it, which actually that like first 20-30 minutes of like exposition and like explaining, good job. Like I thought the exposition, sometimes exposition can be like, oh my gosh, like what are you doing? Right. I had a filmmaker, one of my film teachers would always say, like show it, don't tell us. Right. But I thought it was fine. So Porridge coming out was like, okay, interesting. Yeah. And now that I've read more, like James has said that like Porridge is going to be the villain for several movies.
Yeah.
So now it's just like, okay, I'll accept that he's back. Whatever. They made it seem like in the first movie that like creating an avatar cost billions of dollars, but now in here and that's why they had to use Jake's twin avatar for Jake, right? Whereas now it seems like, oh no, they're just popping these out in the lab on Earth. Like, obviously, they can do so many because like so many people came back. But so that's fine. Let's move on from Quaritch coming back. He's great.
Yeah,
it was fun. I was just really like weirded out with Sigourney Weaver being like a child. Like
it is.
It
trips out the first time.
Yeah, I think and maybe if I watch it more, like I settle into it. But like by the end of the movie, I was still. And when she was talking and like they changed her voice, yeah. Like I was just kind of like, I'm like, this is weird.
I know it, but I think that like we have to like. This comes back to where I'm like, I think that James, like if you'd given that same role to some person who maybe would have been that age, mm-hmm. I think you would have lost some of the impactful moments that Kiri has in the movie, mm-hmm. because of what a connection for whatever whether it be Sigourney Weaver being in the first one and having a connection with the film to being a great performer, mm-hmm. actress. There's something to be said about that, and I think that it's because I was trying to think like, why is it that like, because I was like, why would he do this? Why would he want to like? Why would? And I think part of it is because like he thought, okay, well, so what if I'm using the same person as we pitch it up and we know is it, but we have to take into account like he's trying to tell a story in some other world, right? Yeah. And it's hard for us to do that because we know who it is, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think that might have been that big flaw in that aspect, right? Even though I think like if you just accept it and you watch it again, you kind of let it be, it's like you kind of get over it. It's like whatever. Because I mean, there's definitely moments where you're like, that's Sigourney, like 100%. You're like, yeah. Oh, that's so Sigourney.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think my biggest one was Spider to some degree.
Yeah.
I think he kind of felt like it's a weird thing. But again, I think that there might be something that happens, in these later movies that like these are just bigger setups for, like this is just the beginning, maybe not, I don't know, just the introductory setup for something that happens that may, because I mean I thought it was going to be about Jake and Sully again and his like whatever, right. But this is about the kids. This is about the kids,
and I love that. I love that decision. I love that that we took away the focus from Jake and Neytiri and focused it on the kids, right? And seeing their coming of age story, right?
Right.
And I'm excited for like their growth individually as characters, but like the family.
Yep.
In the next 3 movies, right? So yeah, I love that aspect. Going back to like your comment of like, he's telling a story in this world, and we have to just kind of go with it, right?
Yeah.
I wish they would have kind of, what I liked about Quaritch, and I wish they would have kind of dug into this a little bit more, was like, what kind of impact does this have like psychologically on a human being who knows they're dead and has come back, right? He kind of brushes it off as like, oh, that wasn't me, that was some other guy, right?
Yeah.
He tells Spider, right?
But
it's like,
spoiler alert, he's not. He still loves his son.
Yeah, right. I wish, and I don't know if they'll go into that, but like, it's almost brushed off as like, and maybe that's just because in this world, in this year of Pandora, like it's very common for people to come back
to copy themselves.
I don't know, but like I just felt like it was just kind of brushed off. I'm like, oh, when it was first announced, that little exposition of like how it's happening, I was like, oh, this is gonna have, maybe they're gonna dig into like this inner conflict within himself of like the psychological impact that this is having on him to be like reborn again. But like, no, he just kind of like, yeah, that was someone else. Like,
see, I don't know though, because like I feel like, yeah, I mean, I think I see it a little bit more with it, like watching it a second time, and maybe you see it more. I don't know, because I think I see, because he was definitely like, there's moments throughout the film. So Spider, who is like not part of the Sully family, but like kind of hangs around. Yeah. He's a very interesting character. Mm-hmm. Like this thing is like watching this the second time, I'm like looking at Spider and I'm like, what is his role?
Yeah.
Because, when you watch it for the first time, you're like, what the heck? He's just like this weird, like other character.
Little Tarzan boy.
But yeah, like a little Tarzan boy or whatever. But I think that there's more to it because of the fact that he's Quaritch's son. Mm-hmm. And with that, there and being Courage coming back with this duplicated brain, but he doesn't know about his death, and then learns about it, and you're just having to come, and then not only that, but like accepting the world, but still being not like just taking it for what it's worth. Like he is Courage's but Navi, right? And yet his son, he like saves his son. His son decides to save him.
Which when that happened, I was like, I literally did a no out loud in the theater. I was like, no, don't let him die. Courage is the worst.
I know. It's just like it's the song that never ends. I think this movie is one of those movies you have to like, you really have to think through. Like if you watch it and just watch it for whatever, I think this comes with Avatar. Like that's why like you have to marinate with it, right?
Yeah.
Because I think like I don't disagree with you. Like the second act is long. It's a long second act.
It's long.
I mean, if I was trying to clock the time, I mean, I think you're right. It was about 40-ish minutes for the first exposition to kind of like, or maybe 30 minutes. And then the first act is at about an hour. But then you go from the second act's all being in the water and trying to learn and having these youth kind of learn.
And again, it was beautiful to watch.
I mean,
like,
yeah.
I loved it, but I just felt like, okay, like let's, especially because you're going like back and forth, you're going like through this like soft music and like and then quick cut to like what's happening with Quaritch and like, oh, we're almost there to get them, and then cut back to like for another 20 minutes with like under the water scenes, and it's like cut back again, and so it was just kind of like, I feel like we could have trimmed this down and had a better flow in the story. But again, that's why I'm kind of conflicted. But like, I loved seeing it.
Yeah.
But for the story, I think it could have been a little bit shorter in that sense.
What was your favorite scene? I know you only watched it one, but like, what was the scene that was most impactful to you?
I think two scenes. I really liked how they went back to like the battleground from like the first movie, the kids, and they see like where Quaritch died.
This is where my dad and your dad fought.
Yeah, like it was just a little bit of nostalgia. I'm like, yeah, you did it. But I think what really hit me, and this was great, like great payoff at the beginning of the movie. Jake says how Neytiri hasn't really ever like. He says like, I don't think she'll ever move on from like the impact that the Sky people had, right? And then the camera looks straight at Spider, right? Like you can see that she still has some ill feelings towards humans,
right?
Rightfully so. And then at the end, when I was not expecting her to like
use Spider.
Yeah. I think that hit hard because it's like, for me, Neytiri is like an incredible character. I wish she would have been used more in the first movie. I still wish she would have been used more in the second movie.
Yeah.
Again, Zoe's incredible at performing her. But it's another side of Neytiri that I'm like, oh, okay, I'm excited to see like there's going to be conflict within her and possibly with Jake and obviously with Spider in the next movies. And I think that was such a great like performance on her act and from the story to just grab Spider and say, no, like I'll cut him up. Let go of my kid.
Yeah. No, that was an impactful scene. And I think that's the scene that I feel like, that is the emphasis of like, is he the same person?
Yeah.
Or is he not?
Yeah.
Right? Or can you be a same person if you I don't know what that sentence is.
I guess you could say, I mean, like what we are who we are because of our experiences and our memories. And in this case, if he kept those memories are based off of experiences. So you could argue that, he is the same person. I really wish they'd like dig into this.
I know.
And I hope they do in the next one. Maybe Quaritch will have some kind of conflict of like, right. I'm back. I've been so focused on avenging. I don't know. Not that he needs to like become a good guy, but
right
there. Yeah. I wish,
I think for me, it's funny that you said like, cause, what's her name? Zoe Neytiri. I felt like she had some of the strongest moments for sure in this film, and they were not ones that were, there wasn't a lot of dialogue for her.
No.
But it was a lot of like impactful moments. And I think I will never get tired of her wrecking people with her freaking bow.
Oh, I know, right?
Every single time I'm like, it never gets old. Like she comes up with her freaking with those dragon thingies, and she just like nails people through the cockpit of the,
the cockpit.
you know, and like coming down from like those. I know maybe that's like the like physical visual side that I feel like she feels when with all these little things happening, right? Jake tearing her away from her own family, right? And then having to I think the others, okay, this is my favorite scene, is when the Sully family come to the Water Tribe, and they're trying to seek refuge.
Yeah.
I think there's a scene that I think there's a struggle, right, with when you're a family trying to find your place of like trying to keep your kids in line, but also your wife in line or yourself in line. You know, like that scene was, I felt like pretty impactful. And I feel like there's a lot of scenes in this film that are very huge, and they only are done with eye contact between the two actors.
Yes. 100%. My other favorite scene, and sorry to cut you off, but
No.
like, I think it's when Jake, right, and I couldn't remember any of the kids' names, but the second one, right, the one that lives.
No.
I can't remember.
Loak, not Loak. Nateum. One of those two.
The second one.
The second one.
The one that lives. I love, you know, they're in the little boat, and it's the water's going up, and he's teaching him like how to breathe, right? He says like, "Oh, we need to get out of here," and Jake says, "No, like you go. I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it." And he teaches him how to breathe, and like that performance between the two, and he tells him, "No, breathe from here."
Right.
And like Jake is breathing, and he's learning how to breathe, and then it all ends with him saying, "I see you." That was so powerful.
And I think you wouldn't have got that if it wasn't for that longer second act.
That's true. True, but I'll still argue that it could have been trimmed down.
And I think this is where it comes back to like we live. It's hard for us. It's hard for us to live in a world where there's like it feels. Because I don't disagree with you. I 100% don't disagree with you that like there's some scenes in here that literally you could shaved off. You know, I don't know, probably 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Of like different parts of each scene.
Sure.
But I think then it comes back to this moment where you're like, I see you, because I do think that is such one of the most powerful moments in the film.
Oh, 100%. And just going back to what you were saying, like the emotion that he portrays, and like I mean, I literally have to pinch myself. Like these blue people aren't real. Like these performances are real, but they're not real.
I know,
right?
Yeah.
And so it's like it was powerful for him to be able to say that, and just the emotion that he shows through his eyes, and like as he's catching his breath and having a moment to like realize, okay, like my son saved me, and like I'm proud of him, and I see you, and just the implications of the phrase "I see you." Right in the first one. And Neytiri explains like, no, this is like an emotional, like deep connection of like I not only do I see you, but like I acknowledge who you are and what you're trying to be. And he says it here to his son, who's been trying to live up to his father's standards, right? So good.
I think there's a whole like film essay on like the ICU. Maybe not film essay, but more like a psychology that he chose to not to say I love you.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that there's something to be said about that. Like, it's not about caring. It's about seeing the people for who they are, no matter how good or bad they are.
Yeah.
Right.
No matter their weaknesses, their strengths,
their backgrounds, or whatever.
Yeah. Who they are. Yeah.
Do you, now I think the reason why that ultimately this film isn't like in the zeitgeist, in like the pop culture or whatever you want to call it, I think it's because the film is the product. I mean, there's now like, you know, Avatar Legos and like all these sort of things, but at the end of the day, you go to see the film and you experience it. And it's so basic that you don't come out with anything because you feel like there's nothing to talk about. But I think that you have to sit here and you have to look at it and you have to watch it a couple of times and you have to take yourself and say, and I think maybe this is why it comes down to the fact that like I'm talking through this through my like through myself right now, but like why he maybe had some of these characters come back again to reprise a different role, even though it's in the same world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it could be that, you know, we have to accept. I mean, we look at I think you look at Marvel and or DC or whatever, and we just like, you know, yeah, that's not real. But we have to look at ourselves and say, like you said, you have to is this really real?
Yeah.
And it's not just like CGI perspective. I think we have to take into account like, can we feel what they're feeling?
Yeah.
And can we do that in our own lives? Can we see people for who they are? And I think that might be like really what it comes down to for this film.
I think you're right. I think people go into or approach Avatar as like, oh, it's just the movie that made so much money.
Yeah.
But it's all just like special effects. The story's so basic, and I think people are hoping that like they're wanting for a movie of such much recognition to have these deep philosophical themes,
right?
Which it does, but it's laid out so plain.
Yeah.
And I think it's going over people's heads. And that's why maybe it's not having the impact that it's that other movies. Everyone talks about the next Marvel. Everyone's talking about what's happening, even though those are just not basic movies, but they're just kind of very direct movies, right? I think there's this approach, I think, that people are going like, well, if it's so good, why is the story so basic? And it's like, yeah, it's a basic story, but like dig into these themes, right? Like dig into it. It doesn't have to be like this Citizen Kane, you know, like breakdown of a character and whatnot. But like, I don't know, and talking through it as well. It's just so interesting how this movie has just not stayed as, I don't want to say relevant, but just hasn't been in the zeitgeist as much.
It's not. I think it's because it's harder for people. Everyone could say, "Did you see that scene in, you know, the new Ant-Man? You know, we have Ant-Man coming up. Like, oh man, having Kang come in and like that was like, oh no, what are they gonna do? So like, there's something about like, well, what are they gonna do, right? I think that we don't know what's gonna happen with Avatar, but you're not talking about it because like ultimately, it doesn't matter. It didn't. It needed to be something that you could just like appreciate. And I think that's part of what it comes down to. Is like someone you can go watch this movie, and you're like, man, that's a pretty amazing movie. Done. Full stop.
Yeah.
But I think that if like, you know, if you're someone who is struggling with family, you're struggling with like feeling, maybe it comes back to the fact that like good movies connect to raw moments and emotions.
Oh, I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
And because of that, those are the films that stick with us the most. Right? I mean, talk about some of the, the biggest movies ever, Godfather, or, I mean, they're bringing back Titanic for another. I'm like, maybe just because James Cameron needs all the money he can get to make these films.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you're looking at these movies. I would even say like to some degree, like maybe not the whole movie, but like Endgame, right?
Mm-hmm.
With like that was a culmination of a huge thing. It's like a moment of, I think for Captain America, right? Anyways, but like these moments, whether that be a moment in a film or the entire film, they come to those basic things. Can you create a real emotion that connects with a human experience?
Sure.
Right? And I think that, not to say that, fluff movies like Shotgun Wedding aren't enjoyable or whatever, but I think that like these are the movies that help shape people to say, I want to tell a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think this will be the movie that someone in, 10 years or whatever will say, I watched James Cameron's, Avatar 2 and I knew that I needed to tell some other story because like that movie was so impactful to me or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
One thing you brought up earlier was how this movie, right, it's doing a lot of setup for what's going to happen, right?
Or at least it could be.
It could be. Yet it doesn't feel, at least we're talking about Marvel. I go watch a Marvel movie, and a lot of times it just feels like this is a setup for the next big thing.
Yes.
Right? Whereas this one, yeah, there's setup elements, but like it's a contained story. And if for some reason he doesn't get funding for whatever, which I doubt it, like it's a contained story and it hits perfectly. It does not feel like wait till the next one or wait for like the fourth one. Like a lot of times Marvel movies feel. And I think that's a huge callback to the writers to be able to say, yeah, we're setting up, but like this is a contained story that we want to tell about these characters and their growth from the beginning of the story to the end of this story.
And I think that what it comes down to, with because I 100% agree with you. And the reason why I say it's a setup is because like I'm trying to say what would I have be the next film, right? And it's only to say, but these, I don't know who's writing or how it's going to be broken down, right? But they have a pretty clean slate, and I think that's what's beneficial about just having these set characters in a set world that doesn't intertwine with anything else. It's just like if they decide to have some sort of impactful, like the next film, or maybe say the fourth film is literally some Quartridge and his son Spider. There's some big thing that happens to like the whole movie's literally Spider. When you look back at the films and you kind of watch the progression, you'll appreciate whatever like the moments that were done in that aspect, right? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the breakdown or how they want to do it, but
no, that's a good point. And James, I was reading an interview where he talked about how I think he's hired about 5 or 6 writers for these.
Oh, interesting.
And when they all got together, they whiteboarded the whole story.
Okay.
Of movie 2 to movie 5. So everyone got together, they all helped write the story, and then after he assigned, okay, you are going to write the screenplay. You are going to write the screenplay for number 2, 3, 4, and 5. And he said, I didn't want to assign the screenplays first because then they would have been also focused on, my movie.
Yeah.
And not focused on the overall story. So I think that was smart of him to gather them and say, we're gonna all 6, 7 of us figure out the story of Avatar, and then afterwards I will assign you the movie that you're gonna help me write.
Pretty awesome. If you haven't seen it in theaters, go do it before it's gone, because it's worth it. Yeah. I think it's definitely, even if you do, even if you don't get to see it in high frame rate, I think it's worth it. Go see it in the film, in cinema, just because there's something to be said about that. I mean, honestly, I think it comes back to like the sound effects.
Oh yeah.
Like when you hear things and you feel that it hits hard. Yeah. Anything else you wanted to say about this movie?
I'm gonna speculate a little bit.
Let's do it.
They're gonna go back to Earth. The Na'vi. Jake Sully.
Jake Sully goes back to Earth.
They're gonna take the war to Earth.
Interesting.
That's a far-fetched idea, but I think I would not be surprised if James Cameron's like, yeah, on the last one, we're taking them to Earth.
Because we don't know what Earth is like. We just know it's dying. Mm-hmm. We also know that like from the film that like there's some special liquid gold that stops aging.
Right.
Which means like, and then we also know that they have the technology to save a person's memory.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Like, Earth is this horrible place, but like the technology that they have.
I mean, they have ships that like we don't know how. Take them to a whole other universe, whatever. Like I don't. Yeah.
And even like even like when Quaritch comes back and he's talking to the general and she's like, we've done
more here
in 1 year than we did in like the last 50 years, right? Like
right.
Because of the technology that they have these little like spider things that are building
assemblers, I think they called them, whatever.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, like are we leveraging this technology back home? Like what's happening on Earth?
I know. And so I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they do something with it. Having Sully in this or like Sully family go to Earth, that'd be interesting. I feel like that interesting.
Or at the least, here's what I would like to see. I would like to see James Cameron take these techniques of filmmaking that he's developed and at least like put them in like in space. Like like at least have like a fight in like a battle like in a station above Pandora or
Or
something.
they make it onto like
Like onto it. Yeah,
interesting.
you know?
I mean, man, I don't know, man. It's
A battle in like zero gravity with like a Navi and like these mech suits.
we just go straight. We're like, yeah, who cares about Tarzaning and Aquamaning the rivers? Let's just go straight anime.
Exactly.
And give these Navi mechs because we gave the humans mechs, but that's not good enough.
Exactly. No, I'm excited. I'm excited for what's coming. I think the next one is scheduled for
2 years,
December 24. So
next, yeah,
2
years roughly.
3 years, yeah. So
good stuff. I mean, time will tell. I think this will be a fun episode to look back on when we look at.
Yeah, after like the fifth one has come out. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Oh, last thing, Kate Winslet.
What? Who she play?
She plays the wife of the other tribe leader.
Who I thought was amazing. No wonder I thought she was amazing.
Yeah, I knew she was in the movie, and the whole time I'm like, when's Kate like appearing? Like, when is she in this? And then it wasn't until like towards the end, I was like, wait a minute, is that supposed to be Kate Winslet? Like, I had no idea. And then I looked it up afterwards. I'm like, yeah, that was Kate.
No kidding.
Anyways, great performance, even though I had no idea it was her.
Phenomenal. And who is Cliff Curtis? I thought both of them. I thought they had some of the best moments too.
Oh yeah.
Like that. Like I don't know, just good stuff. Yeah,
Good stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome. Thanks for watching or listening to another episode of the Real Chums podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Danny Rubio.
My name is Marcel.
If you'd like to follow us, be sure to check out Real Chums on Twitter or on YouTube. And you can listen to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Feel free to follow us. I'm on Twitter at Marstrosity, MARZTROSITY.
And I'm Rubio_TV.
Next week, we've got a great show. I mean, it's Super Bowl weekend, so there'll be some awesome trailers for us to kind of talk a little bit about. Flash, apparently, is a 2.5-minute long trailer.
That's crazy.
So that'll be fun to see. But yeah, come back and should be a good time.
Welcome to the post-show.
Part 2. Post-show. Yeah.
This will be... we're sorry that we're just going to two quick things on Avatar. One, I just want to say that the whale is probably one of my favorite characters. If you know, you know. No, I'm just kidding. But no, the whale just wrecking house that initiates the third. I think the start of the third act is just the best. It's the best.
It's so cool. Like they talk about how like they're smarter than like humans and like they have all this brain activity. But like when he comes out and he's like, no, like I'm strategizing how I'm gonna attack this boat and just and like lands on it and starts kicking and hitting people off the boat. And it's so cool.
Well, and not only that, but like the dynamic between the whale whose name I can't remember, or like the spirit brother, and then the hunter. He's like, look at this bugger. You know, he's like like freaking Australian or whatever. And and then also his hype. Him getting pumped up to just go do this thing, because like we know from the movie that these whales or whatever these animals are used to be pretty violent and would like attack each other and be territorial, and then they decided that they wanted to have peace, which alone could probably be its own book.
Oh yeah,
or a movie or something. You know, like you have those like animal like the owl books. Anyways, but it goes to show you that they were very deep, impactful in a small little line, but. The fact that he had to hype himself up. He's like, oh, this is going to suck. That's my whole thought. I was like, he's just like, let's go. Okay, I got this. Let's go.
It was great. And I like the concept of like the whole spirit brother, spirit sister that they introduced.
I agree.
It was really cool. And they kind of touch on it with like what were the banthas, the flying birds?
Yeah, I don't know, dragon.
The flying dragons. But like this one's a lot more deeper. And like,
I agree.
And so it was great to like see the whales like story arc of like how he was banished and like, well, I guess he's still not like technically accepted into like
we don't know.
We don't know, right? But it's great to like. That was really fun. I enjoyed that. That was great.
Yeah, it was like a little moment in a film, in like this bigger arching film.
Yeah,
that just it was just enjoyable.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to bring up, and I totally forgot this, was the music. So James Horner, who composed the first movie and a lot of James Cameron's films, passed away in like 2011, 12-ish. And so I think the composer was Simon Franklin, whose experience has been working in the music department for a lot of like, he was in like the music department for Titanic and the first Avatar. But I just want to say like he did a great job at building on what Phil Horner had done. And it was great. Huge shout out. I think a lot of times, especially when you're writing like these epic saga stories, and you have one composer who like sets the tone, and then you bring another one. It's like, ooh, what's going on? And you see that a lot. I feel like I'm dogging on Marvel a lot. Marvel is great. I love the Marvel movies, but like you see that a lot in the Marvel movies, where the music is just like the tones are very different.
Yes.
Whatever. But like this one, they built on it. He did great. So huge shout out to him. I'm excited to like see his career continue to grow. So that was fun.
Let's hopefully see. Yeah, I mean, usually with these people, they end up like partnering up for long term. It's like once they make a connection, it's like that's what you're doing for life. Not for life, but like for the most part, you're going to be partnering up for many projects. All right, thanks for watching the post show.
We'll catch you guys next time. We'll take better notes, but no, this is great.